Welcome to the CSSI Virtual Pre-Ministerial Forum Youth Session. My name is Marcel Goyeneche, and I want to thank Ms. Ajan Robinson, who you just saw in the video, who is a youth from the Turks and Caicos Islands, well known for a long service to the Cadet Corps. Alongside cadets, Ajan is a passionate youth advocate, inspiring psychologist, and singer for the local youth band called the Trinity Band. She also sings for a church youth praise team called the Bethany's Angelic Voices. Thank you, Ajan. I want also to thank all of you here present with us today, as well as all of you joining on YouTube for this very special session, which tries to bring together the voices of all of you from all over the Caribbean and give a platform for those voices to be heard by people in the Ministry of Education, as well as other parts of government, apologies. And with that, support the advancement of the Caribbean Safe School initiatives. I want to welcome the moderator for this session, Mr. Jade Thompson, who is a young man from St. Lucia, hailing from the West Coastal District of Anse-la-Reine. An avid reader, writer, leader, and public speaker, Jade finds the time out of his studies to spend in various organizations and groups in various capacities, from service committee co-chair to public relations officer to president to member. From an early age, he has never shied away from responsibility, representing his school on both the academic and athletic fronts. Recently, amid various conferences, sport activities, and organizations, Jade has refined his craft of poetry, performing and competing on both national and regional stage. His proudest moments being placing third in the ECCB Creative Youth Poetry Competition and performing at the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival. Currently, Jade resides in Europe studying architecture and aims to be owner of his own architecture firm in the future. Jade, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcel. Good afternoon and welcome again to the 2024 Caribbean Safe Schools Initiative Virtual Pre-Ministerial Forum Youth Session. My name, as you know, is Jade Thomas, and I will be the moderator for today's session. Before we begin, I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules, studies, and work life in order to contribute to a very meaningful and important conversation. The theme for this year's CSSI Virtual Pre-Ministerial Forum is Caribbean Safe Schools, Increasing Resilience in a Multi-Hazard Environment. Our voice is very important as we make our contributions to advancing school safety in our country and in the region by extension. In that light, it is important to speak up, let your ideas be heard, as well as respect the ideas of others as we look forward to a fruitful and purposeful session. Therefore, during the course of the next 2 hours, opportunities will arise to both ask and answer questions posed by yourself and your peers by speaking, as well as using the various tools that will be made available to you in the live chat. To those viewing on YouTube, you are not forgotten. Various links will be made available to you as well, and it is imperative that you also actively participate in order to make this session a success. The YouTube chat will be monitored to ensure that your comments and questions are brought into the discussion. Now, without further ado, we need to get to know each other. As your country is called, I would like you to just please state your name. And to those viewing on YouTube, it is important that you also can write your name in the comments and where you're from. I urge you to be ready when called on, as this is a very short session and we need to move as efficiently as possible through each portion of the agenda. So the first on the list is Grenada. Grenada, can you please, the representative from Grenada?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Ron.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you see me as well?
No, I think you're right. You're here now.
Yes, you can see me now. Awesome. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Ron, and it is my pleasure to be here today. I'm from Grenada. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I hope to share my voice in this amazing event.
Thank you, Ron. Moving on to St. Lucia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shalu Constantine from St. Lucia. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to having a fruitful discussion with you all.
All right, the next participant from St. Lucia.
Good day to everybody.
Good
Hope everybody is well. My name is Sheikh Alphonse. I'm currently a youth worker for the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports.
All right. And the final participant so far for St. Lucia.
Good afternoon. My name is Kidia Albert, and I'm here from the Leones Comprehensive Secondary School.
And welcome, St. Lucia. Welcome, Grenada. Moving along, we'll move on to Anguilla, starting with Sanaya and Jada.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanaya Richardson.
And my name is Jada Romney, and we are from the Albina Lake Arch Comprehensive School.
Thank you. Our next representative from Anguilla.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maya Lake, and I'm currently a student at the Anguilla Community College. I look forward to a fruitful discussion.
Welcome, Maya. Welcome, Anguilla. Now we move on to St. Martin, starting with Ajane.
Okay.
She's not here yet.
Sorry about that. So, Giovanni, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Giovanni Promo. I study in secondary schools on the.
Thank you, Giovanni. Dwight, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon to you all. Well, I'm Dwight George, representing Friends St. Martin. Participated in the last forum last year when it was held on that side of St. Martin. So I'm happy to be here and to continue the discussions that we started with the different ministers of education across the Caribbean region.
Thank you, Dwight. On to Ms. Deborah Isaac.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us. I attend the Milton Peters College here on St. Martin.
Okay. Ms. Tanya Marianne from St. Martin as well.
You want me to present myself?
Yes, please.
My name is Tanya Mediang. I come from St. Martin, and I was also a part of the initiative like 2 years ago.
About two and a half, about two
and a half years ago.
Yes. And last but not least, so far, we have Curacao. Lucius?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Lucius. I'm attending middle school at Colegio Alejandro Paula.
Thank you,
and
Lucius.
This is my first time.
Happy, and we hope to see you in many more discussions as we grow and expand on this initiative. So moving right along, welcome again to everyone. Welcome to other countries. And now I'm going to move on to our first speaker, Miss Ashley Lashley, and her introduction. Ashley Lashley is a 24-year-old Barbadian UNICEF youth advocate and CARICOM youth ambassador who has a wide focus on social development issues, particularly as it relates to the health and the environment, children, and women's rights. Ms. Lashley began her journey in 2015 with the establishment of the Schools Against Non-Communicable Diseases when she was 16 years old. She also chaired committees on these issues and worked with many NGOs and community-based organizations in Barbados and across the region. In 2018 to 2021, she hosted 3 Global Youth Network Summits in Barbados with the primary focus on non-communicable diseases, the Sustainable Development Goals, climate change and health, and sports for climate action. She was named an advocate on childhood obesity by the Heart Stroke Foundation of Barbados and was ordered by the Optimist Club for her work on non-communicable diseases. Ms. Lashley firmly believes that there is a distinct need to assist in the social re-engineering and development of the Caribbean region from a youthful perspective. Hence, she established the Ashley Lashley Foundation, whose primary focus is therefore to bring about a greater sense of awareness of some of the world's major social, environmental, and health issues, particularly in small island developing states. In 2020, Ms. Lashley also founded the HEY campaign, Healthy and Environmentally Friendly Youth, which is a Caribbean-initiated campaign on climate change and health with global outreach, seeking to build bridges between youth in the Caribbean and around the world, which has a network of over 100 climate change activists. Some of her recent innovations includes the Barbados Youth Climate Action Summit and EcoActive Youth Program. Ms. Lashley's motto is to let no obstacle be greater than the cause. As I welcome Ms. Lashley, I would invite you to contribute to ask questions using the Menti link that will be posted in the chat as well as in YouTube. Ms. Lashley, welcome.
Thank you, Jade. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. It's so great to see so many young people present on today's call. And I'm happy to be addressing a very crucial topic that should be central to all of our discussions and everyday interactions. So if you would allow me, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, I'm just going to share my screen and please let me know if you can see it. 1 second.
Yes, Ms. Lashley, it can be seen.
Great. Thank you very much. So as Caribbean youth, I would say today we're diving into a big mission, a mission where we're looking at making our schools stronger in the face of tough stuff like hurricanes and earthquakes. And I know for us as young people and children, it's crazy stuff. But guess what? I believe that we've got what it takes to face it head on and come out stronger on the other side. So I want to tell you a bit of a story. Picture this. I remembered vividly when I was a kid, just hearing the word hurricane made me shake. I don't know if that resonates with you guys as well. I remember I worried about school, my school getting wrecked, my house falling apart, and even losing the playground where I spent so much time playing. But the scariest moment I remembered was back in 2007 when I was only 8 years old and my island Barbados was hit by a massive earthquake. And I remembered I felt the ground shaking. I was at school and I was running. All of my friends and my other classmates, I just heard lots of screams happening and everyone running. And we didn't know where exactly to go. And I remembered I looked around, but I couldn't find anyone, and it was home time, so I couldn't even find my mom. And I was super, super, super scared in that moment. But you know what? I would say from all of that fear, something amazing happened. I recognize that even when things seem really tough, it is not about how strong our buildings are or how much money we have. It is about the power inside us, the strength to keep us going when things get rough. And that's why I am here today talking to you guys, not just as someone who got scared, but as someone who found hope amidst all of the chaos. So in the Caribbean, schools are particularly vulnerable to a variety of hazards. So I will explore with you the impacts of these hazards and what our priorities should be to really help guide our actions effectively, but also what challenges or obstacles we really need to overcome and to build resilience. So we're going to look at identifying priority hazards. And one of the most common and devastating hazards is hurricanes. These powerful storms, as we've witnessed across the Caribbean, bring strong winds, heavy rainfall, and storm surge, causing widespread destruction to infrastructure and posing significant risks to the safety of our students and our schools. So I'm also a UNICEF youth advocate, and I remembered reading a recent article where, according to UNICEF, an estimated 2.4 million children are at risk from the impact of hurricanes, which 271,000 were affected directly. Additionally, earthquakes are a considerable concern for Caribbean schools, especially in regions near fault lines. While less frequent than hurricanes, earthquakes can cause catastrophic damages to buildings and infrastructure, leading to injuries and even loss of life. And only in 2022, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake destroyed the only school in St. Table, the children of the small coastal community in southern Haiti have not seen their education interrupted. And of course, the educational community has had to adapt to exceptional circumstances, and the private home of a teacher is now becoming a classroom. So we really need to make sure that we really need to make sure that our schools are becoming more resilient to withstand the amount of environmental shocks that we're seeing. But then there's another major priority hazard that we're facing as well, and that's floods. Floods are another hazard that Caribbean schools must contend with, particularly in low-lying coastal areas and regions prone to heavy rainfall. Floodwaters can inundate school buildings, disrupt transportation routes, and contaminate water sources, which poses health risks to students and staff as well. And I hope we can have a more engaging conversation right after my presentation. So again, feel free to place your questions within the chat box. But moreover, socioeconomic disparities exacerbates the impact of these hazards on our Caribbean schools. Schools in marginalized communities often lack resources and infrastructure that is needed to withstand natural disasters and provide adequate support to vulnerable students. Addressing these disparities is really crucial for ensuring that schools have the capacity to mitigate risks and respond effectively to these hazards. But despite the urgency of addressing these hazards, Caribbean schools are also faced with numerous challenges in their efforts to build resilience. And for example, limited resources and raising awareness. And we're also going to get into other parts of that within our discussion today. The awareness gap poses challenges to resilience, building efforts in Caribbean schools, and knowledge really empowers. And as we know, everyone says, education is the key to success. So we need to educate ourselves, And while some communities may be well informed about the risks they face and how to mitigate them, others may lack access to one, accurate information, and two, resources. So improving awareness and understanding of hazards and resilient strategies and communities to take proactive measures to protect themselves is needed. So in the Caribbean context, ensure inclusivity and protection in our schools is paramount. And I want us to delve into two aspects of this endeavor. The first one is safe environments. In the Caribbean, every child deserves a safe and nurturing environment to learn and thrive. And I hope each and every one of you present today agrees. However, achieving this requires proactive strategies to address various hazards and create inclusive spaces. Within our region's susceptibility to natural disasters like hurricanes and floods, it is essential that we implement robust infrastructure measures such as building sturdy classrooms and safe evacuation routes as well. And two, monitoring and evaluation is another critical component of this. Regular monitoring and evaluation are vital components of resilient building efforts in Caribbean schools. By systematically assessing our progress and effectiveness, we can identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. This allows us to make informed decisions, allocate resources effectively, and adapt our strategies to evolving needs. Monitoring and evaluation also provides valuable insights into the impact of our interventions on student safety, well-being, and academic achievements. By incorporating feedback from stakeholders, students, parents, and community members, we can ensure that our resilient efforts are one, inclusive, two, responsive, and three, sustainable. So Caribbean youth, we really need to shape our region's future by understanding, embracing, and envisioning resilience. We can pave the way for safer schools. Let us rise to the challenge of building resilience and creating a brighter future, brighter and safer future for all. And in conclusion, I really want us to look at prioritizing inclusion and protection in Caribbean schools, which requires a multifaceted approach that addresses physical safety, emotional well-being, and effective learning strategies. And by creating safe environments, integrating games, children's love, and implementing robust monitoring and evaluating systems, we can really cultivate resilient communities where every child has the opportunity to strive and succeed. So together, I really want us to build a brighter and safer future for all Caribbean youth. And that concludes my presentation to everyone, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you further with any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. That was a short but very, very insightful presentation, and one that is very important. As we have no questions in the Menti platform so far, I would like to ask one that participants remember to keep their cameras on at all times as much as possible. And two, to open the floor to any questions that you may have. So if you could just raise your hand, I may see you, and then to allow that there will be no confusion. Any questions or comments on what Ms. Lashley has said so far? Yes, Maya, you may go ahead.
Good afternoon again, everybody. Funny enough, a couple weeks ago, Leeward Islands had their debating competition, and I was privileged enough to go. And one of the moots happened to be Caribbean countries have sufficiently improved their education systems to prepare youth for 21st century challenges. Now, I was a member of the opposition, and a lot of our research was based on the youth's mental health, the youth's violent tendencies, the youth's financial literacy rates, and so on and so forth. And they were found to be all very low or all in states that we would not want them to be in. For example, a lot of the statistics showed that on average, students witnessed 3 to 4 acts of school violence like per month. And I find that in addressing school safety, as much as natural disasters are something that we need to focus on as youth, I believe that being in these schools, we need to address things such as emotional well-being and violence in schools. And it needs to be pushed a lot more than the infrastructure, because me as a student walking around in my school, I can't tell them that how the concrete is joined and how they need to like push this back or anything like that. But I can be someone on the ground that if a student is struggling, if a student needs help, then programs like that, I can assist it. So yes, that's just what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Maya. And I 100% agree. And while most of the presentation was geared towards the climate resilience and infrastructure of schools across the Caribbean region and really making it more resilient, I believe social well-being also comes to play and is also integrated with resilience. And even as we look at equipping our schools to become more resilient after or before a disaster has occurred, our schools really need that psychosocial support. And although we have like guidance counselors already integrated into our school system, that is not enough. We really need a comprehensive approach to mental health support and having that psychosocial support that we really need as well, and that more integrated approach. So even although our team today is centered more on resilient building and infrastructure and the climate resilience, while we're taking that approach as well, we also have to take a look at the social well-being of our students, because when a disaster occurs, that it also impacts on our overall social well-being. I remembered when I formed the Hey campaign, one of our Hey ambassadors, she spoke to that after Hurricane Maria devastated her country, her father was like the breadwinner of the household, and that totally had an impact on her and her family's mental health, because their family didn't have the finances that they had back then, or their key source of income was destroyed as a result. And even across the Caribbean, we've witnessed that a lot of schools as well are hurricane shelters. In my country, Barbados, a lot of our schools are hurricane shelters. So we really need to take a look at that comprehensive approach to building resilience that certainly takes a look at the social well-being of our students as well before disaster occurs and after disaster occurs. So I totally agree with your point.
Thank you, Maya. Just before we continue, we are running super late, so we'll have about 3 to 5 more minutes for questions. So if you have a question, we would like you to ask it to Ashley. And if you don't have a question but more of a comment, we would ask that you keep it further a bit later for the roundtable discussion. So Dwight?
Yes, wonderful PowerPoint, Ashley. My question is the following. When we speak about the Caribbean region, we speak about the how do you say that? The large part of it, but we don't speak totally about each and every Caribbean island. Why I'm saying that, because certain islands are not a part of CARICOM, for instance, such as French St. Martin, for an example, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and let's say French Guyana, CNAT Guyana, English Guyana is a part of CARICOM. So in that term, these French states can these French states benefit from the different safety hazards communication or safety hazards help, etc. By not being in CARICOM, or do they need to exceptionally be in CARICOM in order to benefit from these different activities, such as this, for instance?
Thank you, Dwight. I personally believe CARICOM is a great unity platform that brings together different countries across the Caribbean region. I totally believe, based on the structure that I presented today, that there needs to be a multi-sectorial approach and further collaboration with countries within CARICOM and outside of CARICOM in order to really achieve the resilience that we would love to see within our schools. And countries outside of CARICOM region can also collaborate further with countries within CARICOM and outside the CARICOM region, because at the end of the day, we're talking about protecting and creating safer school environments. And it shouldn't come back to where we're based or who the institutions that we're connected with. Each and every single child across the overall Caribbean region, whether it's the English-speaking Caribbean, French-speaking Caribbean, Spanish-speaking Caribbean region, really needs access to stronger infrastructural schools. Maya spoke about the need for more psychosocial support. So it really needs to be a multi-sectorial approach that transcends beyond boundaries, whether you're connected to CARICOM or not, because at the end of the day, each and every child across the Caribbean region must be within an environment that is deemed safe. So I would say that there needs to be a heightened level of collaboration within and outside of the CARICOM regions when it comes to building those safe environments for our school students to really thrive and succeed in their endeavors.
Thank you, Ashley. Ron?
Hey, Ron.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Just to confirm. Okay. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned climate adaptation and resilience. It is quite an interesting topic. What I can, my question is in regards to climate adaptation and resilience. What are your perspective in regards to providing first aid training for students and teachers in schools?
I think that is extremely important. You heard in my presentation that I stated that education is the key to everything. And when we're talking about climate adaptation, even mitigation efforts, it comes back to that awareness component. And we really need to heighten the level of engagement and awareness, not only to our students, but also teachers and parents at large. At the end of the day, climate adaptation affects each and every one of us. When a disaster occurs, it doesn't affect anyone differently. It affects most persons the same way. So what I would say is that a lot of persons have been rallying across the Caribbean to get climate change placed more within the agenda of, or within the curriculum of our school systems. And that is extremely needed if we are to adapt better to the impact of the climate crisis. And we've been hearing a lot that the United Nations Secretary General have been advocating for more early warning systems across the Caribbean region. And that is also an adaptation strategy which is needed across all Caribbean territories. So how then can we ensure that all students are aware of safety practices before a disaster occurs? How can we educate our overall populace of knowing what is needed before a disaster occurs? So again, it needs to be that multi-sectorial approach that involves not only our governments, but private sector institutions and non-governmental organizations to really heighten the level of awareness within our school sector. So, for example, if we are to build more resilient schools, it's not only about the infrastructural component, but it's also about the awareness component as well to school students, to teachers and parents. So that overall approach must be integrated in any plans when we're talking about building the resilience and creating safer environments for our schools. I saw your hand is up again, Ron, so feel free to open your mic if it's okay, JD.
Yes, thank you very much. I like the fact that you mentioned our teachers and students. In that perspective, what do you think about psychological? You said to look at it from a psychological perspective as well. What do you think about confidentiality in regards to school safety?
Confidentiality is paramount when it comes to school safety. We as young people, well, for me, when I was going to school, my fellow colleagues, we didn't really trust sharing information with our teachers and our other counterparts. So there really needs to be, I would say, breaking down that overall barrier, because I tend to find that we really don't want to talk about our problems or any issues that we're facing with our teachers and even with our friends. So our overall school environment must become more inclusive and safe so that we really feel the need to share. And even when it comes to sharing, then there's lots of bullying as well that happens within our school sector. So it all comes back to that inclusivity approach, where each and every child that is going to school or student knows that there should never be a stigma attached to learning and to sharing. And we really need to have those inclusive forums where we could ensure that confidentiality is key and that we are actually addressing the needs of our children and young people within a school environment. And that goes back to the same psychosocial approach, a more integrated psychosocial approach within our overall school systems, Ron.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one question. That question in regards to what do you think that nurses are important in schools?
So I believe everyone
So that is
Pardon?
no, I was just saying that is my question. Do you think that nurses are important in schools or in case of not only our emergency or natural disaster hazards, but what are your perspective in regards to nurses in schools?
I think it is important to integrate all persons from all different types of background within our school sector. I believe I remember through the Hey campaign, we're also looking at ways in which we can educate health professionals about what it means to be more climate resilient. So I believe, again, we need to train where is the awareness on resilient building, climate infrastructure, to all different persons from all different types of backgrounds, because at the end of the day, the notion or the topic of climate change and building resilience touches on so many different facets of our communities. So definitely nurses do have a major role to play within the integration of our school systems when we're talking about climate resilience.
Thank you, Ashley,
Thank you
and
very
thank you,
much.
Ron, for the questions. Just to end the session with Miss Ashley, I just want to make a few comments, especially when it comes to CARICOM. CSSI is not CARICOM, it's not CARICOM Islands, it's open to all Caribbean islands. And non-CARICOM islands are also part of CARICOM as well. All ministries of education are very much encouraged to join. And young people who are listening, young people from all different countries who are form part of the Caribbean, are encouraged to approach your ministry officials and inform them if they don't already know, or even sometimes that they may know, but they need an extra push from the young people. That's why our voice is here. That's why we are here. And that's why our voice is important. So make that extra step. If your country is not part of CSSI, if you want to find out more about it, it is very important to make that push, make that connection to ensure that we have safer schools in the Caribbean. Just to add something from Lucius in the chat, it says that to build earthquake resilient schools, the Dutch government is going to spend 30 million euros for 83 schools in the Netherlands. And there are low level earthquakes. In the region where he lives, there are not many natural disasters, but it is because it is part of the lower islands, which means that it is also part of the continental plates. Ms. Lashley, I would like to thank you again for your contributions, and I look forward to hearing more about your foundation in the future.
Thank you. It was indeed a pleasure being here. And congrats again, everyone. You're doing a good job on moderating as well. I really enjoyed the questions that were coming at me. So continue to have a great session, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. So moving right along with the program, I would like to welcome you all to continue to ponder on the questions, the topics that Ms. Lashley touched on in her presentation. It's very important as we're going to move forward with the roundtable discussion soon. However, between now and then, we are going to have a short intermission of sorts as we welcome a youth performance by Ms. Florianta Grace Bosman, a 15-year-old student of St. Martin. She embodies the essence of artistic passion and dedication. From the tender age of 4, Florianta immersed herself in the world of dance, embracing styles ranging from ballet, jazz, Afro, modern, and hip-hop to tap and urban dance. Not content with just mastering the movements, she ventured into capoeira at the age of 9, demonstrating a thirst for diverse forms of expression. Florianta's commitment to her craft extends beyond her personal practice. She generously shares her knowledge and skills by assisting dance instructors at various schools, imparting the joy, of movement to others. However, Florianta's artistic talents don't stop at dance. She is also an avid student of music, taking piano lessons and demonstrating a keen interest in exploring different artistic mediums. Her love for drawing and painting further illustrates her multifaceted creative spirit. For Florianta, the arts represent more than just a pastime. They are a sanctuary of peace and harmony. Through her performances and artistic endeavors, she seeks to share this transformative power with others, spreading joy and inspiration wherever she goes. Today, Florianta will grace us with a dance choreographed by her, accompanied by her personal music selection. Let us immerse ourselves in her artistry and be moved by the beauty she creates.
Thought I couldn't breathe without you. I'm inhaling. Thought I couldn't see without you.
Thank you, Ms. Bozeman, for your breathtaking performance. And we encourage you to continue improving your craft as we look forward to seeing more of you in the future. So now we're going to move on to some more meaty matters. Now we're going to move on to the roundtable discussion. So what I'm going to do next, before we begin, I'm going to ask a question and we will go around, get a few answers, and that will form the basis and the backbone of our discussion. So basically, we are here discussing the Caribbean Safe Schools Initiative, increasing resilience in a multi-hazard environment. So now the question is, what does that theme mean to you? If you just raise your hand and then I will call you accordingly to allow for some coordination and organization. What does this theme mean to you? Yes, Lucius.
For me, is the theme of multi-hazardous environment is from drugs and other social hazards that are in the same trend, like drugs, alcohol, and stuff.
Thank you. Jalou?
I agree with what Lucius would have said. To me, increasing resilience in a multi-hazardous environment is something that speaks to more than just climate activism, climate change, um, climate resilience. I look at it as both ensuring the safety of our students, physically and mentally, ensuring the safety of our students against natural disasters, against social ills, whether it be gang warfare, drugs. We look at different taboo topics such as mental health, teenage pregnancies, all these different facets of social life, coupled together with environmental resilience to ensure safer schools within the Caribbean.
Thank you, Jalou. Ron?
Thank you very much once again. The theme simply means to me, simply, uh, it have to do with society as a whole, not only our students, but it involved the integration and collaborations of communities, students, and our citizens of different countries as a whole in regards to natural disasters and keeping students safe.
Thank you, Ron. Moving along, I don't see any more hands as yet. Maybe Sanaya, and do you have anything to add? If not, I'll ask Maya to go ahead.
Hello, everyone, once again. Similar to Ron, it takes a village, in my opinion. So, in building resilience, what this is giving me is that we need a stronger sense of community as well in the Caribbean in order to help our students out in their respective schools. Also, I agree with everyone else that spoke in terms of drugs and alcohol and teenage pregnancy and so on and so forth. I think that we need to tackle every area one step at a time.
Thank you, Maya. Anybody else as yet to answer this question? Maybe Tanya, Dwight?
The theme emphasizes on the safety of the entire Caribbean region, and how do we the way we it shows that is by its actions, such as this pre-ministerial youth forum, and the youth forum it has on a yearly basis. It's a proof that they don't only emphasize like on a part or on one or two territories, but also on the whole Caribbean region, and also reaching on different islands that, as I said before, are not physically a part of a Caribbean organization or other.
Yes, Ron again.
My apologies, but I forgot to point
No
out
problem.
two important words: climate adaptation and resilience. Mitigation is a very important word as well in regards to the team. We find possible ways as how we can increase student safety and what measures we can put in place to enhance the educational system and as well as the Caribbean countries.
Thank you. Maya.
Oh, I forgot to mention with this topic, it also comes to mind that in the Caribbean, we have a lot of these discussions and a lot of amazing ideas are always thrown forward and they do make policies. But I think in the Caribbean, our problem is implementation and the follow up, not so much the planning. Because oftentimes you'd walk around schools and you'd see certain major issues and then you'd say, but are there no policies for this? You guys don't have rules addressing this, so on and so forth. What they do, it's just that enforcing them is the issue. So I hope that from these discussions and the amazing ideas that we come up with, that we'll be able to implement them and to continue implementing them and enforcing them in the future.
Thank you. Lucius, go ahead.
Just like Maya said, it is with the implementing where it kind of stops most projects. But the reason what I think what is also where I'm currently at, the problem is that people don't have an open mind. It's too they don't want to change anything. They don't want to change how they live. That is the biggest problem, I think.
Okay. Ron again. Something more to add?
I think what we need to do as well is focus on environmental friendly products being sold at schools to increase the student health, and as well as I would say the fact that planning is very important because it gives us a sense of direction. It reduces uncertainty, and definitely you need to have an execution plan, at least a call for before you can have a call for action.
For sure, these call to actions are part of the CSSI mandate. There are various initiatives being taken that have been taken and have been implemented, especially from the last youth forum, where I had the privilege of going from the youth forum into the ministerial discussions and really having fruitful discussions and really understanding more what CSSI has done, what it's about. And for sure, these discussions are very important, and there are call to actions being undertaken and programs happening all the time. If there are no more answers to this question, I will continue the discussion with asking what factors create this environment. We have already started touching on this. So, Jean-Luc, if you don't mind that you expound on one of your points on creating the factors of this environment. What factors, sorry, create this environment, this safe environment?
Okay, so on the idea of the climate resilience and climate adaptation, just like Ashley would have said in her presentation, back in St. Lucia, many of our schools are designated emergency shelters in times of hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, whatever the natural disaster may be. And I know recently it would have been, Jade, you could correct me, but I think about 2 or 3 years ago, it was late in the year, we suffered some very heavy rainfall. There was a lot of flooding, a lot of damage that occurred to a lot of infrastructure in St. Lucia. And at that time, it highlighted the need for our emergency shelters to either be changed from being schools or our schools need to be upgraded to serve in a capacity, to serve in the proper capacity to be emergency shelters because of the deplorable condition that they were in. So I think, first of all, in terms of the climate resilience, if we want to build better schools, we need to start with the word is slipping me right now, but it's not prevention, but essentially a reactive measure, first of all. And after the reactive measure being the fixing of our schools, the creation of proper compounds, proper emergency shelters, we then need to find out what preventative measures we could put in place to ensure that persons don't have to pick up and run at the sight or sound of any and every natural disaster, that persons don't live their lives in fear, whether it be by building seawalls in areas that are prone to flooding, heightening our riverbanks, putting in place different policies and whatnot to ensure that when developments are being done, persons follow the appropriate regulations and rules of the development control authorities around the region. In terms of the social ills and social taboos, I have always been a strong advocate of education. I believe that education is really and truly the key to a lot of our problems here in society. And right now, I look at societies where we have increasing gun violence, particularly within poorer communities. And the common theme that is seen, whether it be through my own personal discussions or research with those persons affected by it, is that they don't have the resources to send the younger ones to school. They would not have received the proper education themselves. So we need to essentially increase awareness and place a more heightened importance on education, whether it be by creating education scholarships that guarantee that all students receive a level of education up to the tertiary level, all students receive a level of education up to this level free from the government. Of course, these are things that theoretically sound well, but practically it will be very difficult to execute within the region. We are a small region made up of small island developing states. Our economies are not that large in the grand scheme of things, but I think that it is necessary for us to at least begin somewhere than to do nothing at all.
Thank you, Jacques, for a very comprehensive insight. You are correct, it was about 2 years before the last one, where out of nowhere, we seemingly suffered a mini trough where large clouds of rainfall fell in one area of the island, and that had been unheard of. That area had not flooded ever in light of many troughs in the past, many hurricanes, many storms, and that really shed some light on even those areas which we do not think are prone to flooding can be affected. Sheik, you can go ahead.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Loud and
You
clear.
guys can hear me? Okay, very good. My name is Sheikh Alfos. For those who do not know, I'm a youth worker representing the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports from St. Lucia. One factor I think that affects a lot of the schools, especially in our island, is community. So around schools, usually down here, we like to have schools in communities where we can find a lot of children, so it's easier transport. But sometimes it causes a situation where the community can become the problem, where if there's a ghetto or bad boys around the area, they become a negative influence on the school. And we've had many examples of this. Recently, there was one in Babano where young men came into the school with cutlasses, threatening another student. And so these things I think we should take into account. We should foster better partnership between the private sector of the community and the schools, so that the schools are not just on their own, so to speak. And also, I would recommend when building schools in the future to probably do some background checks of the area to ensure that you do not place a school in an area that is dense in crime and negative effects. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Sheikh. I think that's very important. However, many times these schools are seen as a light, can be placed as a light in a dark place, but then they can be transformed into something that we really do not want them to, and can be turned into a breeding ground for bad habits and bad experiences. However, schools should be built and founded upon learning, education as well. and the uplifting of our youth and creating safe spaces. Ron, you can go ahead.
Thank you once again. What I can advise you in regards to our school resilience, I must make mention about proper first aids in every school and fire extinguishers. Also, I would like to join my colleagues in regards to speaking about socialization. The school is considered to be a very important socialization organization, socialization uh, organization, yes. Or definitely it is important and mandatory that the school have ethics, codes of conducts. Additionally, I heard about the increase in violence. Of course, there has been an increase in violence. And what we can do, we can train our security officers, educate them as to how to uh, safeguard the school in a more or effective way, meaning that they are not just being effective, but they are being efficient as well. Um, Additionally, what I can say in regards to climate resilience, we need to ensure that we engage students in community groups so that they can also feel supportive. Their culture can increase. We definitely need to do that if we need to mitigate or increase school safety, as well as probably have a risk management team within those schools to increase the student safety once again. And that's my perspective on it.
Thank you, Ron. Lucius, you can go ahead.
Yes, just like previous people said, schools are a place where bonds, negative and positive, are going to be formed for the next decades, where the new leaders are going to be from the countries. But also, the schools, how smarter your population is going to be, the less violence you're going to get. Yes, there are always going to be people who are going to be the lowest of lowest. But if that is only a small group, you can re-educate them, and then they're gonna to do maybe not very learned, but they're gonna have a good job, and they're still livable. Yeah, without violence and stuff and other.
Thank you, Lucius. You are very right. There will be both ends of the spectrum, but it's our responsibility and with this initiative to ensure that the lower end of the spectrum does not become a breeding ground for negativity for the next 10 years, but positivity, like you say. And those are the future, the youth are the future of our various communities of the world, because now we live in a very, not only local community, but a very global, regional community where everyone is connected. So with that being said, Maya, you can go ahead.
Thank you. One thing that I wanted to mention was that in building schools, I believe it's important to take into account the opinions of teachers and students at the current campus before they plan on building a new block or something of that sort. Because oftentimes you'd walk around school campuses and you'd hear a lot of students complaining about certain things. For example, lack of places to sit or the amount of space in classrooms, etc., etc. But also things that that go over their head. For example, if you're using a room to store chemicals, it needs to have proper ventilation, or else the chemicals, they will be very reactive, you know? So certain things like that, you need to consult the staff of the school, teachers and students mainly. So also, regular checks of the schools, because oftentimes once the school is built, unless there's a major issue with a certain part of the school, you don't see people walking through and evaluating their work to see how practical something is, to see how it's being used, etc., etc. And that is very important in schools.
Thank you, Maya. You're very right. I have noticed that for some reason there seems to be a lack of external seating at certain schools. And then even sometimes, with that being said, there is also rules that students are not allowed in classes during lunch breaks. So that can form a bit of unsettling for the children, where they find it very hard to find where to go, where to sit, where can they commune, where can they do something recreational. And sometimes that can force them to be a bit reactive and react in negative manners and channel their emotions in negative ways, where really we should be considering channeling it in more positive ways, positive influences, maybe creating different groups within those times with different club activities as well to ensure that within these times, students are properly engaged. Tanya?
Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. I also wanted to state, because I believe it was Ron that said something about security. It was Ron that said something about security. That was also another thing I wanted to touch base on, because not every school even has at least proper security, as in not just like cameras, but also a actual person that's also there to even make a difference. Because if you notice, they have a lot of, I'm not saying in the Caribbean, but overall, you never know what's possible. They also have a lot of shootings in schools. And imagine not even having the simplest person as just one security. They don't have in a lot of schools. The difference it would make when it comes to even fights, because a lot of times, even in primary schools, if they have little children fighting, they don't have security. The teacher is gonna have to step in and do it, and sometimes it's too much for them to handle. And it would be like really great to just have to make sure every school has a security, not just cameras also set up in case of any emergency, so they can also back up, what they're saying, but also just to make the children feel more safe, and to not just let any and every, adult come into the school without knowing their intentions, or without, knowing who the person is, as well as treating every school more or less the same. I also noticed for, at least in St. Martin, they have, different levels of schools. And one thing that I really had to really touch based on is when they fix the schools, they had a school, and they had the school I attended. And when that school was getting fixed, they let the students borrow the school I was attending, in the afternoon, so that the students can learn. But now that my school is getting fixed, the school I attended is getting fixed, they wouldn't let those students go to their school to get afternoon classes or anything like that. So I also find that very unfair, and very, very, like, what's the word I can use? Very, like, not well conducted. I also feel like the communication is also something that has to be improved within all the high schools, just because the moment I realize that students see their teacher has it put together, they see that there's, communication between all the schools, it also affects the students. Students can tell if something is not going well in the school. Students can tell if one school is not really getting along, the staff, just the staff, the board is not getting along with the other board. And that also affects, believe it or not, with teenagers, affects friendships with students, just because the board is not stable. So having security, can you still hear me?
Yeah, for sure, we can.
Having a right security, having cameras set up, like everyone else said as well, when hurricanes and come stuff, to make sure that everything is up to date, everything is stable, have regular check-ins to make sure that everything is right and proper, and to just never leave it reach to the point that the school is falling apart, to like acknowledge that it needs to get fixed, because all of those things play a really big role in the child's education, not only because the child is gonna be like in a place that they can probably get sick, but probably because after a point they're gonna realize when it's too late to fix the school, they're gonna have to move every child individually, which also makes a problem for the parent. When you have to move your child, a whole primary school, for example, they did it back home. I went to that primary school. They waited too late till the school had so much issues. They had to move the students into different primary schools. And that just causes a problem for that child's mental health as well, just moving them into a different environment that they're not accustomed to, but also just showing that they need to keep track with certain schools, because not every child can carry their child, let's say, over the hill to another those primary school you sent that child to, you know? So that is also I feel like have to be really, really fixed. Just making sure that the buildings are on track with the way it's supposed to be. Do not wait till it's too late. Just keep it monitored. The board of the school having better communication with one another, and also just making sure that the child's mental health and that the schools are up to date with everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. That takes me back to Ashley's presentation when she mentioned proper school maintenance and continuous maintenance, not just once in a while, every few years, we build a new school and that's it, the school is not maintained. But school maintenance is very, very, very important, where we continuously assess schools before it's too late and we tackle the problems before it's too late. And with that being said, also the security guard issue is very important. I know in St. Lucia, some schools have security guards which everyone knows. So for example, we would know that this security guard is the security guard for the school during the day for as long as we're there. After we go and we come back 10 years later, that's the same security guard and there's a level of trust. However, we have seen over the past few years in various countries where companies are the ones who are tasked with guarding schools and they rotate security guards a lot of the time. And sometimes these security guards may not really have the same level of care and compassion for the students that other security guards who are there and form genuine bonds with them may have. And that's just something that maybe we need to look at, where we ensure that the security guards that are placed at our school, one, have the proper training, and two, they actually care about their job and they care about the students and they are acting in everyone's best interest. That being said, Sinaya and oh, sorry, I forgot the name.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear us?
Yes, Jada.
Sanaya. Okay, I wanted to just touch on the overall infrastructure and security in our school. My teacher said that there's around 800 students that attend, and my school is huge. It's
very big.
3 stories high, and it has an extremely open layout. So there's multiple ways in and out, and by that, there's only, I think, one entrance that's actually a door. Other places are just like we have multiple buildings, so like a science block. And in the morning, you have to get your bags checked as a safety precaution. But you could just go around to the back of the school and walk to the science block, and no one will realize. And it's especially hard to monitor our campus at lunchtime because everyone's on different floors. And back in first term, when our campus was open, they used to break the pipes on the third floor bathroom. So all the water would flow down, and no, we're only allowed to use one bathroom.
Yeah.
That's all? Okay, thanks.
Wait, what is?
Thank you. That's a very interesting point of view, because I remember myself going to college in St. Lucia and then going to secondary school. Funny enough, my secondary school's name was St. Mary's College, where we found that the campus being very, very large, there are many different places where you can pass and be unmonitored in a sense. And that can prove, to be very honest, can prove dangerous and can prove to be a liability when it comes to ensuring that we have safe schools. And these things need to be monitored more, maybe with the placing of more security cameras, again, better equipped security guards, better trained security guards, and also with the fencing and maintaining of those exterior portions of the schools, ensuring that there's not any overgrown bush on the exteriors of the schools, ensuring that there are no secluded pathways to come in and out of the schools. Maya?
Building on what they said in terms of happenings at the campus queue, I believe it's important that schools, very important, that schools build relationships with the emergency services, the fire station, the police, the hospital, so on and so forth. I believe someone touched on that briefly, but I just wanted to state how important it is now, because I don't know much about the state of most schools in other islands, but I know that in Anguilla, violence is definitely on the rise. We have had several shootings, so on and so forth, and there have been threats at our school, and I found that the response was not one that you'd expect. They are a small island, and things like this should not be happening, but they are, and we need to take these things way more seriously. I believe that in the Caribbean, violence is way too normalized, as in we're not flinching and wincing when we hear things like someone came to the school with a cutlass or so on and so forth. We're not flinching when we see videos of fights happening at school because it's become our norm. And I think that we just need to sit down and realize that this is not normal and that the police needs to be involved, so on and so forth, in issues surrounding the youth and their safety in schools, because the reality is majority of youth in Caribbean schools are not safe right now.
Thank you. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Thomas, I must recommend that you are correct. A positive attitude determines your aptitude. And what I can say for us, we need to, at least for the big schools itself, they need to have practice emergency drills. For example, shooting could be a practice that they can use. In regards to a business perspective, I will make mention, as previously, that businesses should provide environmentally friendly products to protect the students' health. What businesses can do as well, they can or implement strategies as to, for example, an MNIB marketing board business, the school can collaborate with them in having a safer and a healthy meal for students as well. So that's my perspective I wanted to share in regards to increasing student safety in schools.
Thank you. Sanaya and Jada, you can go ahead.
Okay. Adding on to what Maya said in terms of threats, this school term we've had multiple gun threats, and you would expect to see an increase in security or more police presence.
Yeah, but
we haven't seen anything.
In fact, I feel like we've had less police presence, security officers around the school protecting us, and it's a big campus, and we barely have like any security cameras.
I would say like we have less than 20 security guards on campus. So when it comes to like fights happening at lunchtime, there's nothing they can do. They can't even get through the crowd to try and break up the fight.
They just watch.
And sometimes security guards, they see things going on, but they don't do anything to stop or intervene. They just stand and watch.
That's very interesting because, like you say, training is very, very important. And like Tanya was saying, when it comes to students and schools being moved, you find, like Sheik was mentioning, when you have schools being built in certain violence and gang-prone areas, the issue is we build these schools to be very accessible. So we build them especially in the lower level schools, the primary schools. We build them in communities. You find that primary schools have much less of a population than secondary schools because they are meant to be very accessible to rural communities as well as the urban areas. And that can end up causing situations where when you get to the secondary schools, you find all these different personalities mixing and these different maybe different gangs that have influenced these students mixing and causing issues. Where right now, in various Caribbean islands, we have seen over the course of the last few days, certain islands having ministers stepping down because of the rise in violence. And that's something we really need to stop, and it starts from school. It starts from this level. Dwight, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jade. To bounce back on what Sanaya and Jada said, and also what Ron said, if I'm not mistaken. Firstly, on the different drills, to prepare for like earthquakes, etc. It's a good idea, but it needs to be prepared accordingly. Why? I'm saying that the infrastructure, the building, the school needs to be prepared for shooting drills. For instance, in my school, we just have shooting drills at every beginning of the year. But the school is not prepared in terms of materials in order to face that type of situation, such as having blinders, in the classrooms in order to prevent the shooter from seeing the students, and doing damage. And such as having a proper gate, a gate at the school in order to prevent, outsiders from just walking, just giving the door, as we just in the Caribbean, one kicking it both open. You understand? And so we really need to work on that, but also and also for a drill to be properly respected by the pupils, the students, I believe they shouldn't know that there's a drill coming. Because I remember before I left, because now I'm in Paris studying, before I left last year, we had the shooting drill, and he had this personnel from the school that literally wrote on the board in we just call it permanence. It's basically a room where all students would come and take a break and etc. And they literally wrote the thing, so everybody was taking it as a joke. So when it had the shooting drill, they laughing. This other one went open the door and went outside. You understand? So the students are not supposed to know in order for it to be efficient, and the school needs to be prepared in terms of materials and infrastructure. That's on school shootings, etc. On the fights and different things at schools. I'm speaking for Prince and Martin, and a bit for the Dutch side. We had this event, this event that happened about 4 or 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, when students left from their school on the Dutch side and came to a school on the French side in order to stop someone. After the island is not that big, it's a 20-minute journey, but that's to show you how far they would go in their actions. And at the end of the day, it didn't have no security personnel at school. And by the time everything done, that's when after the local or national police came, when everyone is gone. So we need to have a proper security. When I mean security details, security plan for each and every school across the Caribbean region. And in order to better that I'm looking for the word. Not too bad. In order to reduce that risk and these type of situations in a school environment. So that's my just 2 points on those points.
Thank you, Dwight. What you make is a very important point, because we see many times that students would not only travel to the schools, but they will make plans to meet up in the city center and have these altercations, and that puts many people at risk. That puts the public at risk as well as themselves. Chrisanne, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to not the security issue, the layout. We need to be more mindful when we're in a manner that we can monitor the student that used to be used the students to smoke, other stuff. So I think we just need to make sure that the security may not using that. The way that we build the buildings, we need to make sure that they discourage mold, etc. I'm not sure what that is. But you know that with all the holes in the wall. If you sit inside the class and you go into the wet.
Chrisanne, sorry to interrupt, but your Wi-Fi is not the best. But I caught what you were saying. What she was trying to say, for those who wouldn't understand, was speaking onto the infrastructure of the school. You find many times that to reduce on maybe materials and costs, you'd find these large window areas, those holes put into the school, instead of it being windows and things that are able to have the shutters and bulletproof shutters, maybe, where something can be permanently installed to block out the outside world in the event of a disaster or a crisis of some sort, or even a natural disaster where these schools are used as shelters. You find these holes being used that even rain can come in. So far less for bullets and far less for times when we really need to shut in, lock down, and be safe. Jaluk, moving to you.
Thank you so much, Jade. I have 2 points really. I'm gonna try to keep them very concise. Um, the first one would draw back to what you would have said earlier, Jade, and also a point that Sanaya would have made in terms of, I guess, one, the existence of security, or as we call them back home, watchmen at schools, and I guess the inefficiencies of them in times of need. I think the major issue with securities and watchmen, while over time, especially in St. Lucia, I'm speaking from the St. Lucian perspective, whilst we have had these persons in these positions for so long and they've built a rapport of trust, they have a certain level of care, a certain level of compassion towards the school and towards the students, because I know up till a day like today, my primary school, I could pass my watchman on the road. He will recognize me, I will recognize him, and we will still greet each other. He has that level of compassion and care for the students and for the school. But as society has continued to develop, violence has continued to increase, and we've seen more occurrences of persons entering school compounds with weapons, entering school compounds with the intent to commit violence, whether it be against students or staff members. We recognize that these watchmen are not enough. Not enough in the sense that they are simply present, but there is, for lack of better words, no use to their presence. We have watchmen and we have securities within schools that are not, they have no professional training. They are not sufficiently trained if there is professional training. And because of that, we find that in times when we need them, whether it be to break up a fight or to assist in de-escalating a violent situation, they are nowhere to be found, or where they are to be found, they're incapable of doing so, and we must then rely on the national police or the local police to come to us. And even then and there, our police, whether it be in St. Lucia or just around the region generally, our police officers, our police system is already one that is very overworked, very under-resourced, and at times, because of that overworked and under-resourcedness, they're very incapable of committing their jobs also. So I think that in terms of creating a safer school environment, it's a matter of more than just having proper watchmen or proper security guards, but providing consistent and constant training to these persons to ensure that they are always at a level, or persons deem them to be at a level that they can rectify the smallest, well, probably not the largest because they're just one person, but the smallest or more medium-sized matters without having to get national police involved, without having persons to live in fear because, hey, the watchman is there. The watchman is actually of some use. The watchman can break up a fight if he sees a fight happening between two students. The watchman will not just stand up there and tell you, hey, stop that. Like, you know, the second point is Ron would have mentioned the execution of drills. Both Ron and Dwight, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Ron and Dwight would have mentioned the execution of drills. And whilst I do believe that the drills are necessary to essentially increasing our preparedness and acquainting ourselves with these different situations, I will be speaking from the experience of last year. It would have been, I believe it was around October, November last year. I was actually sat in the middle of one of my classes when I got a notification that popped up on my phone that armed men had entered the school. Currently, I'm in Barbados. I'm studying at the University of the West Indies in Barbados. And I got a notification saying that armed men had entered a secondary school in Barbados.
and they would have been an attack, etc., etc. While Dwight did say that he feels that it's important that students not know, it would have soon been revealed that the armed men who entered the school were actually part of a drill organized by the Ministry of Education. While the intent was to prepare students for the possibility of such an occurrence, we recognize that in the situation where students are not aware of these things, the way that we execute it can have more of a negative impact than a positive impact on students, especially when we speak so highly within the Caribbean, especially as young people, we speak so highly of prioritizing mental health, prioritizing the psychosocial well-being of students. We need to understand that in executing these drills, while they may be beneficial, we need to understand that maybe we give some sort of hint, we give something to let students know, have persons prepared, because at the end of the day, we also don't know the situations that these students are coming from, whether it be from a violent household, whether it be from a violent community. So we don't want to place our students at more of a risk, all in an attempt to create a safer, quote unquote, safer school. So in that sense, I would more want to know, it's not something that we have to discuss now, probably Ron and Dwight, but if some way, somehow we can discuss this later on, or we all just give it some thought about how can we execute those drills in a way that the impact is positive, more positive than negative, without jeopardizing, one, the integrity of our students and jeopardizing the integrity of the drill itself. But that's just my contribution.
Thank you, Joe. You make some very important points because these drills are meant to not be taken for mockery, not to be a joke, but really implement and strengthen our disaster preparedness and things that really affect us as students. I noticed that Ron posed a question in the chat saying, what's the perspective on the security companies visiting schools every 3 months to do camera checks? I think with that said, we need to be more frequent than just doing camera checks, but have cameras posed all the time and have these companies, these cameras not just wired into the schools where they are left to be monitored by teachers and school officials, and they are more used as a deterrent for fights, but more of a security purpose as well as a deterrent for these activities. With that being said, I'll go on to Maya and then Tanya, but we only have about 8 minutes left, 8 to 10 minutes left. So after that, I would like everyone else to ponder on how can we as youth really impact and influence the problems that we have been stating. If Maya and Tanya, you want to touch on those as well as you speak, then that would be very much welcomed.
Hello, everybody again. So to be brief, regarding security, I believe that security is not only something that needs to be done during the day, but also during the night. Because you'd find that most of these schools, as you had mentioned earlier, are open in various areas. But in general, the land that the school is placed on is secure in terms of there is a fence or whatever else. But these things would not deter people from coming in and doing whatever they want to do at night, which would just make it easier for them to build on that during the day. And to touch back on the drills, what Dwight was saying about how students should not be informed, in my opinion, they absolutely should. Sometimes they wouldn't take it seriously, and I can understand why that would cause you to say that they should not be informed. However, I believe they really should. For example, a couple weeks ago in Anguilla, there was a mass message sent out to the children at school that someone was coming to shoot up a particular student at school. And a lot of parents started taking their kids out that day, so on and so forth, but a lot of us stayed back at school. Now, I was in class, and he said that when he was coming for the particular student, he would pull the fire alarm. Now, you'd think that this would alarm security, this would alarm students, so on and so forth. However, police were not at campus, security, they're probably like the same amount of guards or even less that day, and the alarm was pulled. Now, you'd think that that would cause us to try and get up and execute the drill, get to safer places. But no, we were sat in class wondering, did someone pull the fire alarm, or is this actually happening? And then you're seeing some classes being evacuated, some still teaching. My teacher did not stop teaching, and we all were looking at each other like, okay, what's going on? What are we doing? Come to find out, thank God, that he was not at campus. The person was not at campus with their firearm. But had he been at campus with his firearm, I know that Anguilla would have had a detrimental thing happening at the high school. So I believe these drills are very important and that we really, really need to take these things more seriously. And students need to know how important drills are to take them seriously. In terms of what the youth can do and what their part is in all of this, I believe that we are a brother's keeper in this issue, whether it's mental state, whether it's drugs, violence, alcohol, whether it's climate change and everything like that, we need to look out for each other. And we also need to have more systems in place where youth can help each other. Because oftentimes you find in schools, youth don't want to have assistance from, for example, the counselors or the teachers, so on and so forth. So I think buddy systems in schools are very important.
Thank you, Maya. And that's something that sometimes I understand your point of view, saying that students should know that it's a drill, but maybe if they know that it's a drill, then they won't react how they would actually react if it happens. And therefore, that takes away the fact of us knowing, okay, how do we really react in that situation? How do we stronger implement ideas and influence students to actually take part in not just the drills, but if this actually happens, okay, if this actually happened and it was not a drill, what would have happened? What would have been the outcome of this? And it's good that maybe they did not know that it was a drill, or maybe it wasn't a drill, because then we would say, okay, if this actually happened, then this would have been the outcome. However, if everyone knew it was a drill, then they would have reacted like it was a drill and have evacuated and maybe taken it seriously to the extent of they take part in a drill. But if they don't know whether it's a drill or not, that's when you really figure out, is that really their response? Is that how you actually going to respond in the situation? Moving on to Tanya.
I also wanted to say, when Dwight also stated that sometimes they shouldn't know, the best thing I would say based off of experience is letting them know, because when I worked at Sol, the gas station, and even at school, they would let us know in advance, because sometimes like I think the young man said, the trauma and the stuff, sometimes you never know the household that the person comes from, but also as well in psychology learning, because from psychology, that certain sounds and certain things also triggers certain emotions for certain children. So it's also, if you don't tell them and you just do it, you don't know every child's background. So sometimes it's always good to tell them, okay, like in the morning, first thing in the morning, hey guys, we're gonna have a drill probably around from this time, to just stating from what time to what time, and more or less they can know, instead of going to instant panic. Because also, if you don't take the thing to kind of, how to say it, if you do not let them know, sometimes they're not gonna take it as serious. Sometimes, let's say it's just for practice, and you do not say like, okay, we're gonna, have one today. And when they get accustomed of them just not saying it, and they go outside and they're like, oh, it's just a skill, make sure you guys are paying attention. At some point, they're gonna be like, oh, they don't really, they're not really taking it serious, just take your time. So then the moment it does happen, they're just gonna think it's like, it's a joke. But the moment you tell them in advance, hey guys, this is a practice drill. We need you guys to come outside, just put in the effort, so the day that it does happen, it's not a practice. That is also something that you can put inside their mind, because they can learn and unlearn something very quickly. So it's like, the moment you put fear into them, you're just gonna cause either panic. A lot of times it happens when the moment you insert fear into someone, it triggers them to panic and have anxiety, and they most likely going to stay in one place off of panic and anxiety. It's more so better to just tell them in advance, hey, we're gonna have this from this time to this time, because it also helps them break down their emotions, and also know that, do not go into instant panic, because it's not serious. This one isn't real, so that they know the next time. It keeps them in practice with their emotions as well, and their mental health well-being.
That's a very good point. And with drills, I think drills are meant so that panic doesn't happen when it's actually a real deal. Where in a case where, okay, you get, like you say, you learn and you unlearn things very quickly, we find out that, okay, in this sense, that it's not a drill, it's not a drill, it's not a drill, or it is a drill, it is a drill, it is a drill. And when we get to that point where we don't know where maybe when it's a drill or not, but we act in this way, whether it's a drill or whether it's not a drill, and we act accordingly. Therefore, maybe that's the best solution. But then always the question is, how do we execute drills without compromising the integrity of the students and the drill? Lucius, you can go ahead.
That's from drills. At my school, they did past year a fire drill. It gone wrong. It took us nearly an hour to move 900 students a mile. Almost an hour. In the heat, and some students even got heat strokes out of it.
Wow.
Because it was the first fire drill in 10 years.
Wow, and that shows the importance of frequent fire drills, because if we have them frequently, then we actually know what goes right and what goes wrong, and how do we prevent things that maybe the fire will hurt XYZ number of students, unfortunately. But then when we try to escape the fire, even more students are getting hurt by the measures that we put in place to mitigate those factors. And that's why it's important, so that we know that in light of these issues, these factors, these drills, that we implement things in place that allow us to appropriately deal with the situations, to not further incite fear, to not further create harm on the students, and appropriately mitigate those factors. Kadia?
I understand where we're coming from when you say students should know about the drills, or students should not know about the drills. But I think in cases where it would be compromised, that should not be the case, because drills are of great importance. And in our society, in the Caribbean society, we know how bad crimes may be, disasters and stuff along that sort. But it's like it should be programs on based on how important drills are, or how effective being prepared. Maybe it should be something that is like common in schools. So the same way we have HFLE classes, we have civics or Christian education, just school safety should also be instilled in schools like regularly. So we'll be up to date on, maybe not telling us exactly when the drill may happen, but telling us why the drill is important and why we should take it seriously, or what to do, and just giving different reasons and ways we could prepare ourselves, etc., etc. That's just my view on not knowing drills or knowing about drills.
Okay, great point. It's very important that we know how to react, so that if it's a drill or if it's not a drill, that we react the same way. And that's why drills are important, that we put what we practice into fruition, and that we appropriately go about these disaster avoidance measures and these disaster response measures. So I would just like to ask shortly for, again, those maybe who have not spoken as yet, or maybe just one or two sentences on just how do we as youth, what can we do? Maybe one sentence from each of you. How can we impact, influence, and create safe home, schools, and learning environments for students?
Hello.
Go ahead, Dwight.
In one phrase, I would say we need to break the barriers in order to build new roads, new paths, and in order to bring renewal, because a lot of schools are outdated, but really outdated at a certain point that they're not even safe for students to be in the school, but students are still there because of certain reasons, because there are not sufficient funds, or there's this blockage of where to move the school because of a land issue, etc., or funds. So yeah, we really need to break the barriers in order to bring renewal. And in this time of renewal in the not only in the Caribbean region but in the entire world.
Thank you, Dwight. Someone else? Anyone else? Just one last sentence from everyone. No. In that case, I would like to thank you all for this very fruitful and important discussion. I know this last 2 hours, this last hour, especially when it comes to the discussion, has flown by very quickly, and I would very much love to continue the discussion, as I know many of you would, and many of you may have more to say. And even maybe as we continue to speak, we find more solutions and more answers. So with that being said, I invite you to continue the discussion, continue posing your ideas, the questions, the queries, to the emails and to the Menti format, and pose your questions, participants, and those in the YouTube chat, those listening afterwards, those listening live. Continue to pose your questions, your solutions, your comments, and that way they will be taken into consideration and that your voice will be heard. With that being said, I would like to welcome Ms. Zaria Ingham to do the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zaria Ingham, representing the Turks and Caicos Islands, and it is with profound gratitude that we extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this youth session a resounding success. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport of St. Martin for their outstanding efforts in hosting and organizing the Caribbean Safe School Initiative Virtual Pre-Ministerial Forum. We commend the chair of the CSSI, Dr. Anders Rudolph E. Samuel, for his leadership. And we thank our speaker, Ms. Ashley Lashley, for her meaningful contribution, Ms. Florian Bozeman and Ms. Ajane Robinson for their exceptional performances. And we thank you, the youth who participated on Zoom and YouTube. Your presence and engagement underscore the importance of collaborative efforts in ensuring the safety and resilience of our schools and communities. A heartfelt thank you goes out to the Youth Session Planning Committee for their meticulous planning and execution, ensuring that every aspect of the forum was flawlessly executed. This committee comprised of Ms. Ernika Van Putten, Ms. Almunda Montillo, Ms. Clarabelle Figueroa, Mr. J. Thomas, and myself, Ms. Zaria Ingham. We thank our parents and all those who support and encourage us. And we also extend appreciation to the CSSI Virtual Pre-Ministerial Forum Organizing Committee, comprising of the Ministry of Education in St. Martin, SEDEMA, UNDRR, and UNICEF, under the chairmanship of the School Safety Focal Point for St. Martin, Ms. Olga Mussington Service. In closing, let us reaffirm commitment to fostering safe and secure learning environments for our students and educators. Together, we can continue to work towards a future where every child has access to education without compromising their safety. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Zaria. And with that, I would like to again thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time, viewers on Facebook and YouTube, especially viewers here live and participants. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for your contributions. And that being said, I look forward to hearing from everyone here again and wish you all a blessed rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.